Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Dr. Tom Catena, a missionary and a surgeon who, at great risk to himself, helps others to survive. Originally from New York, Dr. Catena moved to Sudan, where he was working as a physician since 2008. In 2017, he was honored as the Aurora Prize Laureate, an award given to a global humanitarian, and that seeks to recognize modern-day heroes. Dr. Catena was appointed as chair of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative in December 2018. So welcome, Mr. Catena.
Thank you.
You were appointed, as I said, chair of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative less than a year ago. This position gives you the responsibility of engaging the humanitarian stakeholders and also meet and working with global partners. How is your work as chair going so far, and what does your work in this position entail?
Yeah, I think it's going pretty well. You know, we started this journey together with Aurora. We didn't know which direction it was going to go. And we started out last December. I was out for 3 months. I came out into the mountains for 3 months. We met with a lot of different people, big and small NGOs, UN officials, WHO. And I saw my role as being more an advisory role to Aurora as to which direction to go. And I think the conclusion we came to was we want to try to focus on this concept of what's called localization of aid. And it's a big, you know, kind of UN type word. All that means is you take the resources, whether donations or aid, and you put that in the hands of people at the grassroots level. So kind of lowest common denominator. And we feel that those people can use those resources most effectively, and they can find their own solutions to problems. So I think it's kind of a sea change in the thought in the humanitarian world, and we with Aurora are trying to follow that idea.
Sometimes when you have a humanitarian aid and you give financial help to people, even though they are willing to change something in their own community, but dealing and managing this amount of money is pretty hard. But is there some following up, or are there some people that can help them to manage this money and to use it correctly, let's say?
Right, so these, what Aurora's done so far with the recipients of the Aurora Prize, they required a reporting format from them. So there has to be a way where the recipient of the aid can report on how they've used the money. One of the problems with the international humanitarian sphere is that sometimes this process is too complicated. You know, take our example in the mountains, for instance. We had several donors at one point, big international donors, and we couldn't manage to keep up with the paperwork and the administrative requirements. So they all dropped us. We went from one point from 27 donors down to 4, then down to 2. Now we're down to 0 at the hospital. And the reason was we couldn't keep up with the administrative requirements. So we're trying to find a way now with Aurora, and there are other groups also working on this. How do you get money in the hands of people at the grassroots level? How do you have them account for that, but not to the point where they have to hire 20 or 30 people to make the accounting, all the administrative tasks they have to do and report back to you. And I think there are ways to do that, much more simple ways. A lot of, for example, have them write a simple report. I think the basis of what we're doing with Aurora is something based on trust. And all the people that are recommended for the Aurora Prize and nominated, these are people that have gone through a very extensive vetting process. So by the time they reach Aurora and they're semifinalists and then finalists, these are people that have already been through the ringer. So there's very much an element of trust in these individuals that, hey, if we give these people the resources, they will take that and use it very effectively. And I think whether you're dealing on a large scale or small scale, in the end, you need some element of trust with the people you're working with. You still require they make a report, then they send the receipts and other things they need to do, but don't make it so onerous that they can't manage. But at the crux of all this is there has to be some element of trust with the people that you're supporting. And I think that's the benefit Aurora has, because Aurora has already gone through a very extensive process with these individuals and these projects. And I think we do have a level of trust with them.
Mm-hmm. You will speak at the 2019 World Health Summit that will take place in October 27 to 29 in Berlin, Germany. You will join leading healthcare experts and also decision makers from around the globe to talk about global health challenges. Based on your experience and also given the many urgent issues in the health sector, what will be your message?
I think what I want to try to present to them is what is the ground up view from somebody working at the grassroots level in a conflict zone, cut off from international humanitarian aid. How does that look? Just getting a bird's eye view, because I think most of the people that go to these summits are famous people. They're big people. They're WHO leaders. They're ministers of health of governments. They're decision makers. People that whatever they decide affects global health. So I want to say, okay, this is how it looks on the ground, working in a conflict zone when you're cut off from humanitarian aid, and you're cut off from any logistical aid, and how difficult it is to function in that environment. That's what I hope to accomplish with that.
So as you travel also around the world, what is the message that you share to various communities, for example, to an individual, all these issues, health, climate, humanitarian are so large. How do you explain to individuals that each of us can in fact have an impact or can actually do something to contribute to humanity?
Right, so I think one of the things I always get is the kind of look of despair people have. They say, oh, these problems are too big. How can I as an individual, I'm an accountant or I'm a programmer, computer programmer, what can I do to help? And the message I try to tell people is don't get your head too big about all these issues. They're too big for any individual to solve. Do what you can do at your level. And oftentimes this can be something as simple as find a charity that you like, find an organization you like their message, you like their values, and just support them. Support them financially. They'll also often ask something of their supporters. Say, can you write a letter to this politician to advocate for this issue we have? There's a lot you can do at your level. Just start there. Just get yourself involved. Engage with humanitarian work. Engage with some of these issues. Don't worry about the big picture too much. Don't lose hope and have despair. That's not the point. And do it out of a sense of, I think the word we try to use is solidarity. Don't do it as a sense of, I'm giving this money to poor people. Do it as a way to connect yourself with people on the other side of the world that you maybe don't have much in common with, but see, like, these are also humans. Their life has a lot of inherent value. How can I somehow connect with this person? I mean, the truth is, by giving a donation, you are helping, you're connecting. For us as a hospital, we're a Catholic mission hospital, but we're 100% dependent on individual donations. So somebody who maybe hears about the hospital, hears about another project with Aurora, that gives whatever, $100 or gives some donation, that's a huge help to us. So you're already helping, you're contributing. Don't think that what you're doing is meaningless. I think everybody has something they can contribute. And once you get involved, you get engaged, I think once you make that first step of committing, say, okay, let me commit to something, then you find other ways to help. And I don't know if you're going to talk about the ARAT Challenge, but I want to just throw that in now because it's something very new with Aurora. So the ARAT Challenge it's a crowdfunding campaign that we've just started in Aurora. And the idea is anybody can join it, anywhere in the world. And the minimum you can give down to as little as $1 per month to support this. And this money will be collected, and this all goes to support the Aurora projects. Right now there are 23 projects in I think 15 different countries, projects named by the Aurora laureates. This money can go to support these projects, and it'll help it in a sort of a sustainable way. But we want people to engage with that, to give them a feeling of solidarity with people on the other side of the world. And okay, we're also involved with these people. I'm contributing to the ARAT Challenge. They are contributing resources to these projects. They feel some kind of a connection with other people.
Mm-hmm. To go back to the health summit, right? The World Health Summit. As you're also yourself a long-time health expert, you're working as a doctor in the US, in Sudan, and according to you, what should be exactly the role of this World Health Summit? Because each year there are a lot of summits happening, mm-hmm. global summits happening, climate, health, social, right. But how can those summits have an impact or can really contribute or affect the policies and the processes in the countries to make a change?
I mean, I would like to see even a statement coming out from the World Health Summit focusing on this area about localization of aid, because a lot of aid groups will be there, governments will be there. how do you really, because there's a lot of money going to these countries for health aid. How do you really focus those resources at the grassroots level where it's most needed? How do you get money into the hands of people at grassroots level so they can do their work? I think that should be the focus. And I mean, there are a lot of smart people, people much smarter than I am. We can find ways to get money there and to have hold those people accountable. You know, the truth is that you always find people that will cheat the system. And the honest truth is, whether you're filling the paperwork out properly or not, even I've seen people that they have a huge administrative staff. They do the paperwork perfectly. They write proposals, very beautiful signed proposals. They get some money. They write a very nice, what's called monitoring evaluation report to justify the use of expense. But you see what they're actually doing on the ground. The work they're doing is very little, you know. So, but you know, according to the donor, they're very happy with this group because the paperwork is perfect. So you want to get away from that. You want the resources going to the grassroots person and ensuring somehow that they can account for that money in a way that is not too onerous, that all the resources are spent on administrative staff. Of course, you need some administrative staff, but you want the focus to be on the people doing the work at the grassroots level. So the doctors, the nurses, the lab people, the patients, so money going to medicines, towards vaccine, towards paying those people, all these things you need to do at the grassroots level to make sure they're supported. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see a big push with that. The talk is out there, but the implementation is not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Let's be more local and talk about Armenia now. If I can ask you about your thoughts on Armenia's health sector now. So what are, according to you, because you've been traveling many times in Armenia and I think you have a frame of what's happening here, what are the most urgent changes, according to you, that should be done in the country to improve the health sector?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't by any means want to act like an expert on Armenian healthcare, because I'm not. So I don't want to venture too far outside my area of expertise. But in talking with Armenian doctors and what I've observed here, I think the problem in Armenia is very similar to even the problem in the US, and certainly the problem in Africa. What you have is, you have doctors come through, they go through training, they go through specialty training, and they say, okay, I need to make some money. They all congregate in the big city. So what you'll find in Yerevan, you'll have a lot of doctors, plenty of doctors, probably more than you need. But you go out to the rural areas and there's nothing. Your health facilities, the medical expertise is very limited in the rural communities. We had the same problem in the US some years ago. Even to this day, we have the same problem. So I'll say maybe the focus would be more on how do you improve the rural health care? How do you give doctors the resources and capacity to say, okay, I want to go out to some rural place in Armenia and set up an office there and see patients there, to reduce the burden on Yerevan, but also to treat people where they are, so you don't have to refer into the big city. And you know, in the US, the solution was, okay, you want to go and work out in this rural place, we'll pay you more money than you get in the city. That might be that's one solution. So people say, okay, I can stay in Yerevan and work and I get paid a small salary, or I can go out to the rural place, or maybe, you know, the life is not so easy, but I get paid a big salary, I can work there for a few years. But fine, you go out there, the people in the rural place are taken care of because their lives and their families are equally as important as people in Yerevan. That's kind of one approach to the solution. There are other things. We had scholarship programs where maybe you know, some young guy finishes high school and you tell him or her, okay, we'll pay for your school if you agree to go work in a rural place, maybe an impoverished community in rural Armenia. You agree to work there for 5 years, we'll pay all of your school fees for all of medical school. And then you go out, you work for 5 years, and then you're free. If you want to come back then to Yerevan and do something else, you're free to do that. So I think the focus could be on how do you might have a country, you have per population, you have enough medical doctors, you have enough nurses, but they're all concentrated in the cities. How do you spread that out a bit? And I think in the end, you have to offer some incentive to people to go work in the rural communities. That might be one approach, if I may offer that, just based on my experience and talk to people here, and my experience in the US.
And in Africa too?
Africa too, it's the same problem. Like when I was in Kenya, I was 7 years in Kenya, and like in Nairobi, you have enough doctors, you know, in the capital city, Nairobi. But my gosh, you go out to the rural places, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. And people there die from very, very simple things. Simple operations that they would need aren't done because they're too far from the capital. And they can't afford to come to the capital. So unless you go to them and provide the service there in the rural area, they're not going to get any health care. So, and then you set up a really bad environment in the city. So Nairobi is very competitive. So what you would end up having, in Nairobi you had plenty of gynecologists, for instance. So you had gynecologists doing operations that were really unnecessary. Because I worked in Nairobi for a few years, they get these patients, they had some operation. And I would say, why did they do this? Well, they said I had a problem with my ovary or something. I assist. I said, well, you didn't. I kept quiet, but I thought, gosh, this person really did not need this operation. But since there's so much competition in the city, people end up doing unnecessary things. The same thing happened in the U.S. So
it's a global problem.
Yes, it is. It really is. And I think to get around that, you redistribute the medical personnel you have. But to do that, offer incentives, because I think people won't do it voluntarily. They also have, if you finish like in the U.S., you finish medical school, you get this huge debt. I'll say, well, gosh, I want to live in the city. Well, okay, we'll help pay your debt off. There's another option. You have, $5,000, $10,000 worth of debt. We'll help pay that debt off, but you have to go work in some rural community.
Okay, it's about financial support to motivate them to decentralize from the capitals and from big cities.
Right. That's if you cannot appeal to their sense of mission. I mean, I think you'll find those rare people that will go and do it, say, well, look, I want to take care of the rural poor in Armenia, and they'll go out and do it, But I think the truth is those people are few and far between, whether you're here in Armenia or whether you're in the U.S. I mean, the U.S., most doctors would not go to the rural place unless they had those incentives, pay for the school or a debt repayment program or a higher salary. Without those incentives, they're going to stay in the city, where they have better chances maybe for school or just more things to do. They can go watch a football game, they can go out to a pub, they can do something a bit interesting, and they're not out in a rural community.
So first step for changing humanity in some way would be, for example, to go outside of the big cities to
support,
for example.
Exactly, so support rural health projects and put the resources in places where people live. That's one big issue. So, we're in a rural area, and even us in our tiny little sphere in the mountains, we're the referral hospital. So people had to come to us they would walk for days to reach us, and we thought, this is crazy. Let's try to get clinics out to where they live. So we're slowly in that process of trying to fund and get drugs and get personnel out to clinics way out in the bush. We're also in the bush. They're even further in the bush. So get resources out there where the people live so they can be taken care of. Because in the end, they just don't come. Like our example is a bit extreme. But a lot of people in Nuba, they just won't come. They'll just die at home. And the people there will say, well, this is how it is. He was sick and he died. Like they don't even think there's another option. Like they could have gone for treatment and gotten better. They're used to it. But the goal is, how do you improve the situation there? You've got to go to where people live and get trained people and resources, medicines, and supplies out to those communities.
Okay, thank you very much for this talk, Dr. Catena. Thank you for watching and continue to follow CivilNet.